Welcome back to Realistic Progression 1, or at least the test version of it anyway. And here we have our redesigned rocket. A little bit longer and thinner than before. We've still got the same sounding payload in the bottom. And this is in the nose cone section. And we still have a couple of experiments. They are just the individual experiments though, rather than the selected unit. Because we're using the sounding rocket telemetry unit as the core of this, the pod if you like, or control center. And of course everything else is built on top of that. The engine is using this model of Aerobee. You can use the other one as well. It's fine, and that will get you a smaller engine, which may well look better on this particular size of tank, but you know, either one does the same job and it's the same performance. And then down here I've replaced the procedural decoupler that we had, the white decoupler, with this one that's built for this model. So the stack decoupler here all works just as we did before, not much of a difference there. The difference, however, is that you can use this for other things too, and I've done those extra missions with this rocket off camera. One of the things you can do, this is rated for 50 seconds and this rocket engine is rated for 50 seconds, you can take out all of this sounding payload and you can add fuel. Now you'll see that's brought the time up because this fuel will pass down through here. In fact, let's just remove all the tanks and then add all that back in. Yeah, there we go. So we don't have the other tank for this sounding payload. So now it's up from 50 seconds to 1 minute and 1, and significantly more atmospheric delta V, about 200 and something more. In fact, and that's just enough to push us over 100 kilometers, which will get you past the Kármán line mission, which is at 100 kilometers, and will then get you a bunch of money. I think it's around 20,000, something like that. So it's well worth doing that, but this is flexible enough that you can do a lot of those early sounding rocket missions. However, we're going to have to design something new, because that's not quite good enough. We're now going to need to do sounding rocket missions that are much higher. So there's a couple of options there. We could design something entirely new. If I just pop this out and just don't save that for a second. For the pods, we can choose something like this A4 guidance unit. And if you don't know what the A4 is, it's basically the V2 rocket from Nazi Germany. Redeveloped in America with Werner von Braun. So yes, that's a little bit dodgy history, but it does actually work. And then, you know, here's the A4 engine. And you can, well, you may be able to tell, but these are much, much bigger than the little tiny little rocket we just had to start off with. So then we have to we have to choose what to actually do, and we could, in fact, these are only, you know, 1 credit each, so we may as well just grab all of these. You can just put it together with the built-in models, just like this, and put the nose cone in. All right, and that's everything. The rocket is inside the shroud. I'm not sure if you can take the shroud off, but you can, if you prefer the bare rocket look, you can just take this one off and put this one on. Well, you should be able to. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so if you like that look, then feel free. I sort of like the shrouded look for rockets. And then in the payload, you just want the A4 fins, which you can put on all 4 sides, like that, and you have yourself a rocket. So in atmosphere, that's 2,300 meters per second. That's only 300 more than that previous rocket we had, so that doesn't seem like a good boost. But you can build it, and it's 571 to build. All right, what else can we do then? So instead of that, we can put the 2 rockets on top of each other and forget the nose cone entirely to something called the Aerobee 2. Now this is much more expensive. Okay, it's a multi-stage rocket, so let's take this piece by piece. You've got the same bottom as you've just seen, the A4 engine and its fins. Above that we've got a tank. Okay, now I haven't tooled the tank yet. If we just pop down here and look at this pound symbol, it's interesting that's a pound symbol and not a dollar symbol. Yeah. Maybe the developer's English. Okay, so if we pop over to tooling, we can see that there are certain untooled parts, and we can change those to be tooling if we want to. But of course, we kind of have to spend a fair bit of money otherwise. But if you have a look, if we spend 5,000, we'll then get an untool. The untool cost is 1,300, but the tool cost is 11. So that's a huge drop if you're willing to pay for those. But of course, as soon as I actually change this tank in any way, well, that won't apply anymore and the cost will go right back up. But 6,000 seems like an awful lot for a rocket. So, well, we should probably do some of those things. Okay, so I think one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to take the payload fairing base and I'm going to tool that, because that is, let's just see if I can do that, because that's commonly used. I'm not sure if it's based on, it may be based on the size of it. Okay, 4,000 funds, but we're down to 2,700 for the rocket, and then the tank itself, and this should actually cost a fair bit more. So I'm going to tool that one as well. And we're down to 745. That's a whole lot less. And if we take this back, we can put them back on. And of course, I'd have to spend another 5,000 to get the cost down. Yes, I guess I'm going to do that. All right. So the cost is all the way right down. And there we go. Avionics, however, it says insufficient avionics. And we haven't really covered avionics because the first episode was largely unguided. This thing isn't unguided when it's below 10 tons, and that is because if we look right in here, there, is it there? Yeah, it's there. There's a very, very thin disc here, and it's the procedural avionics. So if I just take this off for a second, you'll see that's a separate disc. And if I wanted to increase the tonnage, I could do it in here. But if you have a look at the bottom left as I'm doing it, cost is going up. Now, what's the current size of this thing? I need to put everything back to do that. So this is 13 tons. So if I want something bigger than this, well, 13 tons, my price has gone up to 1,300. So don't think we don't want to do that. But what we can do is cheat a little bit. It will be unguided when it starts, but as it burns fuel, it's going to drop below 10 tons. And when that happens, we'll get guidance back. We'll be able to move it around. So up here at the top, we've got the same stage that you already saw right here. And I think this is a decoupler. I really hope it does. Yes, it does. Yep. So this top stage will detach, and then it will become an unguided rocket again. So the only time we have to make it guided as soon as we drop below 10 tons and before we run out of fuel in this bottom stage. So that is something that's worthwhile knowing. However, we've also got to adjust staging and just have a look at the delta V stats. Now, if we look at the delta V, the lowest stage, because I've got this custom tank in here, has 2,700 meters per second. And 70 seconds. That's exactly what this A4 is rated for. And its top stage is rated for 50 seconds. I've just gone a little bit above that, but not much. And that is another 1,700. So already we're above 4,000. 4,400 or something like that. And of course, if we're in vacuum, it's a bit more. So this will already go much higher than just building an A4 by itself. But you could build an A4 and you could tool the parts maybe, and get it down in cost. However, I'm going to launch this one, I think. We're going to build this. So we can launch this straight up if we like, or again, we can tilt it a little bit. And because it's going to start off unguided, but I think we're going to tilt it. So I'm going to go to rotate, change to angle snap of like 1 degree, and then we'll just tilt it over just a little bit, not very much at all. There we go. That should be enough. Yeah, you can see that it doesn't tilt the launch clamps, so you can see, you know, the angle there. That's maybe 3 or 4 degrees, something like that. Incidentally, if you don't know how to correct this so that it's pointing straight up again without missing the target, if you change your angle snap upwards to, say, I don't know, 45 degrees, go to rotate and click on this again. If we did it here, well, we'd have a problem. We can only change it in increments of 45 degrees, but if we press F, that changes the rotation to absolute rather than just relative to where it currently is. So if we just grab this now, it's now going to reset back to pointing straight up. Just a quick tip in case you need to do that. And let's change that back to local again and just tip it over just a couple of degrees. That should be enough. Save this, and we're going to fly it. Now, I don't get any takebacks, so you may want to play this on easy, particularly if it's your first time through Realism Overhaul. But do remember a few things. One, that staging isn't right. Yeah, that's now right. So remember a few things with these rockets. Unlike this first one, which had that tiny stage that we could fire both the engines at once, this one you're going to have to fire the bottom engine first. And this is going to take a few seconds to get up to full thrust. So we can't release the launch clamps at the same time, otherwise the whole thing just falls down. Sometimes that doesn't blow everything up, but just yeah, remember that. It's not like in base KSP. It takes time for a rocket engine to spool up, if you like. So then we release the launch clamps. At some point we release these payload fairings. Then we start up the next engine before releasing it. Ideally, if these can help us spin before we get to that point, or start spinning, that will help make sure this is pointing in one direction, because as soon as we let it go, turn its engine on and let it go, it's going to go in one direction. But if it's not spin stabilized, it can go all over the place. So yeah, let's build one, shall we? In fact, let's build two. And let's exit. And let's see if we can find a mission that we can use them on. Okay, so in missions, we're going to be able to get some funds back, and mainly the funds we need to recover are all those tooling costs. So we have a few options. Reach 140 kilometers, it's definitely going to be able to do that. 3,700 would be good. Difficult? Well, it needs to have a payload for that, so let's skip that for the first one, and we might take it for the second one. So we can take the altitude mission, and we only get the option to do one of those at once. Unfortunately, you can't just fly through all of them in sequence, you know, with 54 standing payload and then just fly through 70, 100, 120, 140. No, unfortunately not. You can only choose one at a time. But that's okay. The other options are things like this. So reach a suborbital trajectory and return. We don't have anything like that yet. We're still doing standing rocket missions. The other thing we're going to be doing with this particular build is more science. So ideally, we'll have some control. I may well edit the second one to point the other direction. And while we have control, we'll be able to pull it over a little bit and have it arc up and over and maybe get some science from space. So let's skip forward. This takes 73 days though. That previous rocket only took 13 days once we had the upgrades. This one takes 73. So yes, let's. Our first thing we're going to get before that though is post-war avionics. Is there anything in post-war avionics that we can use? That's material science. This is avionics. Batteries might be useful soon, but not just yet. Ion mass spectrometer. I would assume that is some sort of science, 5,000 cost. And we have the D-spin module and booster control upgrade. What do you do? Don't know what you do until I have access to you, which isn't just yet. So that's fine. Let's skip forward and get to the launch period. I'll see you out there. All right, so welcome to the launch pad with our much larger rocket. We probably maybe think about better launch clamps fairly soon. That's pretty small, and we also want to at some point upgrade this launch pad, of course, to take larger rockets. But for now, let's start it up and wait for the rocket to come in. There it is, and release, and up it goes. Now it's going to say insufficient avionics locking controls. So we'll get that back hopefully as this fuel falls. Hopefully. Okay, so we're on the way up, and as you can see, we're starting to head towards the horizon. We've now got control, so I'm going to enable SAS. And I'm going to keep going over this way just a little bit. Okay. And I will keep watching this time here. We're going to have to remove these fairings at some point. So maybe spinning up, if we can spin up, I can't remember if these deflect or not. We'll see very shortly before we remove those. So we've got 20 seconds left. We're passing through quite a hot section of the atmosphere. Hopefully we'll get through that. Get through that, please. Okay, and I'm going to start spinning. There we go, we're through it. And there goes those. I'm going to turn on this rocket. And we should run out of fuel any second. Oh, there's vapor in the feed lines. And that's a fail. I think I was spinning too fast. So we have to be a bit careful about that as well. This is going to be a failure. And I can't what is it called? Yeah, I can't revert flight, unfortunately. Oh well, this happens. So my timing needs to be much better. Now, if you're really an expert with KOS or something along those lines, you could, of course, do that. How far are we going to go up, though? We're going to go to 217. Even without that, we're going to get into space. Without this entire top section. All right. So, destination Earth. We got a speed record. All we have to do is reach 140 kilometers. So we will get the actual the mission reward. So it is a success as far as that's concerned, but it's not a success as far as I'm concerned. Let's just send that science back. Because I want the whole thing to go. Because once this fires, it would take us up much higher. Probably above 350 kilometers, something along those lines. So yeah. And we're now in space, which means we get a whole bunch more science we can do. And transmit. And I'm going to transmit them all down. The important part of that, of course, is that we get upgrade points for spending those research points from our science budget. So doing that will get us higher speed for all of these rockets, no matter what we actually do. Or indeed faster science, depending on what we spend it on. But as you can see, I've gone through a bunch of other records. And that's just from the fact I'm using a much more powerful rocket to get us up here. Even without this upper stage, it was already hundreds of meters per second faster than, sorry, not faster, 100 meters per second more capable in terms of delta V than this first stage. So it's time for me to go back and see if I can launch the second stage, not the second stage, the second rocket any better. Okay, so to try and speed up the second Aerobee, 69 days. Okay, I think we're going to spend on some more on science. Let's get some more upgrade points. So let's have a look what we can buy. Okay, so we've got 3 cost, 3 cost, 3 cost, and we've got 12 science. So 4 of these nodes we'll be able to do. So let's try and go for the ones we want. First, I don't really want the plane nodes, but well, let's go for the rocketry nodes. Aerobee engine upgrade AJ10. Okay, not sure how much that's going to cost yet. That will probably only pop up as we actually get the node, but we want that one. Early materials science, we'll take that as well. And then we'll take these 2 avionics prototypes. That's the Able Avionics, the guidance unit, some batteries, and the Sputnik. And then another science experiment, the Geiger-Müller counter, so radiation experiment. All right, so we've got some upgrade points, which we're now going to go and spend. Where is my cable construction time? Let's go across to tech, and you've got lots to actually get through. Let's take a look at upgrades. So we can keep on spending. We can buy points with 30,000 funds, but I'm not going to do that just yet. Instead, I think I'm going to keep increasing our ability to build rockets. 0.215 BP per second. All right, what are you up to now? 38 days. That's, you know, next to like 60% of the previous value. So let's just recondition things. I'll see you back on the launch pad for the next attempt. Okay, here we go all over again. Let's see if this one works. Don't spin up so much. Don't spin up so much. And firing the engines. And oh no. Oh no. That's not good. The engine died. Well, that's another time the test flight has, yeah, Well, that's not good. Yeah, that's just shut down. Maybe we should research this engine. Let's really go back to the Space Center. Can we recover that? Technically, it didn't take off. Technically, I should just be able to wheel it back in, say, hey guys, that engine, yeah, it's broke. All right, let's see if I can do that. Let's see it pop up. Hopefully. It looks like I can recover. We got 768 funds from recovered parts. Okay, so I should be able to build another one. I'll put another one on build, and then, in fact, let's pop into the VAB. And we will see if I can research the A4 engine, actually. That might be useful to have. That basically means it's more reliable. Okay, A4 engine. Can I research it? No, unfortunately. It's already researched as far as that's concerned. So it's only 768, so I'm going to build yet another couple of them. I'm going to do one like this, and then we should probably angle one in the opposite direction. I still want one going that way, but I also want one going the other way. So we can just switch to rotate. We're on 1 degree snap already, so let's just do this. That should do. And build one like that, and then exit, and not save. And now I'm going to head forwards in time until we can build those 2 new rockets. So over to the VAB tab, 41 days for each of them. So let's warp to complete. And then roll it out as soon as that comes up. And then launch. Okay, so let's hope this one gets off the launch pad. And yes, I don't have a mission at the moment. Maybe I should actually get a mission. 1 second, let me just go and to the mission control. I just recovered that rocket just because I don't think you can take a mission after the rocket's already built. So that's just one to keep in mind. This one says reach 240 kilometers and we get 3,900 for it. So I think we'll be able to do that one. So let's take it. And then again, we'll fast forward, but I'll see you on the launch pad for the next one. We got all the money back, so it's not really a big deal. Yeah, and that's just the next tech that's available, early solid rocket engines. But don't worry about it. Let's head to the launch pad. All right, this one is pointing backwards towards our own base. So hopefully this won't fail too early. I don't want this falling on the rest of the base, ideally. But let's give it a go. Let's see how it actually goes. I'll leave SAS on. That's not going to do anything until we get guidance back. So let's start up the rocket. Okay, we've got good ignition and release. And up we go. Alright, so we've got 1 minute and 3 seconds before we run out of fuel. And we're going to be going right over our base. Yeah. Don't want to do that. But the idea is we want to head over, not the shores. The water is that way. That's the water biome, that is. But forest is that direction. So we can get more science. And that's the name of the game, really, this early. Get a lot of that research and development on queue. Doesn't matter so much that we don't have access to it yet, just that it's in the queue, you know, ready to go. Okay, so we should get back control. Yeah, we got control. I'm going to tilt over a little bit more. We want to get to 240 kilometers though, so I don't want to tilt over too much. And that's wobbling a little bit. And we're also going to have to get through that that hot section of the atmosphere, or rather the hot because of our speed and its density. So as we go up through here, you're going to see it. We're down to 17 seconds. And I think I'm going to start spinning now. Not very much. Okay. Now we're down to 8 seconds, so I'm going to get rid of the fairings and fire up the engine. And it's disengaged, and we're spinning a little bit. It's enough to keep us roughly centered. Not quite enough. It'd be nice if I had some kind of control to keep it constantly spinning. But we've got a successful stage now, and this is heading up, and really back over the continental, well, not continental US necessarily, but certainly over the state of Florida. Yeah, hopefully not near Disneyland. But this is fine. We've got range safety, so they won't be in trouble. And it's the 1950s. Was Disneyland built in the 1950s? Not sure. Anyway, there we go. Its Apo is huge. We're going to be going up quite a ways, which probably means we're going to get a lot of records on our way up. There's some telemetry, and that's from being near forest. And we should get a mission. There goes the last of our fuel. We burned it all out. It's all been as successful as it can be while going at this sort of attitude, nearly straight up. Yeah, if you live around about there in Florida, there might be a bit of a bad time, but otherwise it's okay. We should maintain connection to Wallops, which is far, far up the coast, and we're going to keep going up. Now, we have got a bunch of records already, so we got that. Was that the previous launch? We're past 240, so it's this one. Speed record, 3,000, 2,000. Altitude records, many of them. Another altitude record, and another speed record. So we're now up to 88,000. So that's more than we started with, even accounting for all that tooling that we did for the lower stage of this launch vehicle. Okay, so at this point, I'm not going to show much more on camera. It's a long way up and it's a long way down. I'm just going to take all the science that I can, if indeed it pops up. I'm not sure if we're going to get into space high at this point. It is, 800 kilometers above the surface, but that's still not terribly high in space terms. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I'll see you back on the ground. I told you everything would be fine. While we were coming down, the whole Earth has rotated a little bit, and we're going to drop it in the Gulf of Mexico. Yep. No one from Florida need worry about their roof being caved in by a falling rocket. However, our rocket is, well, actually, I don't think we're going to be able to get this science. We'll try, but I'm not sure it's going to finish transmitting. It's flying low over Earth's water, but will you finish? Oh, yeah, we've got one science. Will we get the telemetry? It's heating up really, really badly. No, unfortunately, we're out of connection. So this is going to hit the ocean. And yeah. Oh, well. And here we are, back at base. We're up to 126,000. We started off this episode with about 70-odd thousand, I think. And that's because of all the altitude records. This 800-kilometer one alone is worth 10,000. The one below, the 700 is like 8,000. The 600 is 6,000, etc. So, yeah, getting higher up, you'll get those records. And, of course, we've got some more science. More importantly, we've got 3 science. And I think I'm going to do... we can't afford any of these yet, but because we can get more upgrade points with it, even if I don't want the research, I can take this and research it. We should get an upgrade point, which will then let us improve things. So again, I'm going to put that point into the VAB, I think, to build future rockets. So upgrades and 0.245, and we're done. So I think this has been a pretty good point to break this episode. We can just go back in and get sounding rockets, and we can take more altitude rockets. This one has reached 1,000 kilometers. Unfortunately, our current rocket can't do that. I don't think it may be able to do if it goes straight up, but I don't think so. I think it's not good enough to do that. I may have to think about that one, because we can't really... Well, we could try and extend that bottom section, the A4 section, but that will be overburning based on its rated value. So we may have to wait for some upgrades for that. In any case, we can look at the other ones. So we can look at Sounding Rocket Easy, reach 100 kilometers with 146 units of payload. It calls this easy. You'll notice that that's quite a large amount of payload. So I guess what we can do is... We have to put that payload into the top stage, remember, if we use this particular rocket. So we may have to replace some of the tanks out of that stage. Maybe 20 units in the top, or 27 is the maximum for that nose cone, I think. So that would leave 120 that we have to try and fit in the base. Can we actually do that? Let's go and actually take a quick look at that in the vehicle assembly building to see if it's even possible. Because otherwise we may have to design a different top stage. And that's not terribly hard. I mean, if you wanted to go for just an A4, what you could do is put a payload in the top of the A4 and then just don't have an upper stage, and see if you can get that A4 up high enough, loft high enough above 100 kilometers to carry that payload and just have it inside this fairing that's protecting it. However, let's have a look. So if we take this off and remove the tanks, in fact, it doesn't have any tanks at the moment. So I guess I could have got more out of this. Anyway, let's just go into that. I may have to test that off camera. So the maximum we can get in here is 29. So let's just make that an even number. And it was 140 something, wasn't it? So let's say 150-ish. So we need another 120 from somewhere. So if I take all of the tanks out of this, and we're at a high pressure version, so if we go to this UI, what can this take? This can take 128. Okay, so I don't think it's even worth putting this on the rocket at this point, because the upper stage is going to be useless. There's going to be 8 liters of fuel left or something, so don't think so. Okay, as you can see here, yeah, even if I put in a small fuel tank for that upper stage, it's got 3 seconds of fuel, so we can't do that. So it's a bit of a silly option. So what can we do to make it cheaper and easier? Well, all this tooling is already done. So what you could do is just take these off. I'll save this as a separate, the Aerobee 2B. And we could take off take off the engine, and just use this as our temporary payload sort of bay. Not really bay, payload tank, I guess you want to call it. And we could put those just back temporarily. I just want to see how well this does by comparison. Okay, so it's 2784 meters per second, 1 minute 10 seconds, and I'm sure that should be 1 minute 5. Interesting, I'll leave it for now. But even this is even more complex. You know, if we're going to do this, then, well, what I think we probably should do is reroute this to here. Alright, so that's the new route of this. The route is just the base part. So if I now take this off, this is the base part. I could take all the rest of these off, and there will be no harm. Yeah, if this wasn't the route, if this was the route instead, which is where we start off being, I couldn't remove that part from this. This is still active now. It's that's the dead part. So everything comes from the root part. We're going to just throw all of that away. As you can see, the rocket stands 598. We do want to keep this stage if possible. So how heavy is that? That's 12 tons. So it's still going to be unguided at the start, but that's no big deal. Then we just want something to mount a tank to. So if we just have a look, let's have a look for a tank first of all. And let's see what we can do to mount this thing, a payload. Do we have a nose cone that actually is capable of being a tank? I guess we could just fit a tank to the top. That's not necessarily... do you let me fit any tanks? No, you're just a nose cone. Okay. So if you wanted to do this particularly sort of role-play style, what you would need to do is still those same payload fairings that we had before, or nose cone, and the tank on the inside. So if we're going to do that, we may as well do it properly and get a payload fairing base. In fact, I already discarded one of these, but that's okay. I already know what size it needs to be. It's 1.65. That's the size of the A4 at the top. And then we can just put this tank on top. And let's see how much it takes. So we want the high pressurized version. For some reason, that's the only thing you can do for the signing payload. This is 691. So we don't need anywhere near this size of tank, which is good because that means we can reduce its size. And as you can see, the maximum size is going down at the very bottom right of the screen, signing payload. And we want 146, I think. Let's bring it back up. 147, that should be large enough for this. And so we can just set that. 146 dead on. Update. And we can change this more than that if you want to do some kind of style stylized version of a tank. Of course, a tank can't be perfect cylindrical like this. It has to have rounded edges. So if you want to craft that into something more realistic, feel free to. And then we can just grab maybe the egg shape fairings instead of the procedural ones. Okay. And in fact, no, that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit an A4. An A4 needs to be pointy. So let's no. Control Z. Ha! Control Z does work some of the time. Not all the time, I will admit. So let's just go over here and we should be able to select that. There we go. Phew. There we go. All right, so we can change the shape of that if we want to and change other parameters. You know, we're not going to detach this at all, so we can decrease the number of fairing nodes to the minimum. I think 2 is the minimum here, and can we change the shape of this a little bit? No. Ah, well. At least it's not going to let me change the shape on that node. That's fine. So this is 2865, and it's essentially a complete rocket. We're not going to have a second stage. What I was wanting to do just to finish off the episode was, first of all, let me just save that. And I want to simulate this. So I want to see whether we're not really going to have any detachment of this top section. So we can disable the staging for the decoupler. And we should be able to disable the... maybe not. But that's fine. We'll just get rid of those, or not. In 1900, so I might have to tool that payload tank or something, or make it a bit larger and then tool it so that we have some space. But can we simulate now? Let's see what it performs with. So 2800, or there or thereabouts. Our mission was to get 146 sounding payload units up above 140, I think. 100 would be easy, but 140 is what it actually asks for. I think we may just about do it, or just fail. Let's have a quick look. Where's the mission? 100 kilometers. So we should be able to do that, as long as this thing doesn't fail, of course. It won't in the simulation, but in live it may do. So let's start the engine up and release. Of course, we have no controls over this just yet. And we just have to wait till we're below 10 tons of fuel. That shouldn't take us very long. Unlocking controls. So we can use SAS and add a bit of control to this. All I want to do is make sure we're just tipping it up and over a little bit. Yeah. So this is our new rocket, and it has a larger payload and ability to take things up a lot farther than that little Aerobee on the White Corporal. So we should have a rocket now that works very well, and we're about halfway through the fuel. Let's see what our apoapsis is like. It's 3940. Ooh, interesting. We may not make this. 50. Let's see how well this takes care of things. There we go. 90, 100. Okay, now it is going to come back down again, of course, but that's not going to be as much of a problem as you might think. We can just tip it over this way a little bit once we're sure we have the apoapsis okay. Alright, so our apoapsis is 252. That's going to decrease a little bit, but it's probably still be around, I don't know, 248 or something like that. Maybe even 250, which would be pretty good. We have no second stage, so this is really quite a lot like a larger version of the V2. That had a warhead on it rather than a payload, but this one works quite well. So yeah, we can fly this for real and get some more of those missions done. And if this will go to 250, then maybe this will let us take the mission that's higher. So I'm going to terminate the simulation. Yep, terminate. And I've taken this one mission for now, so I'm going to have to fly it. But if we get any more missions, anything above, or anything below 230 or so, we'll be able to take. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've got a new vehicle. We had, well, 2 new vehicles, in fact. A 2-stage rocket and this single stage for just taking payloads up as a sounding rocket. And next episode, I think we may even look at an even newer launch vehicle. I think what I'm going to be looking at some of the tech upgrades that we're going to be researching. They're happening in the background as we're building these rockets, but for now we haven't actually used any of them. So maybe we'll do that next episode. Hope you'll join me then. Feel free to subscribe and share, and of course thumbs up if you like the episode. Otherwise, if you want to have any comments, more than happy to hear them, particularly if you've played Realism Overhaul and want to discuss that further. Otherwise, thanks for watching.